Example number 6. Find f prime of negative 3 if f of x is x to the 4th over 5 minus 6x. Well, before we can find f prime of negative 3, we need to find f prime of x. Now let's think about this divided by 5. This is like a 1/5 x to the 4. So that coefficient is a 1/5. And then it's minus 6x. So it's 1/5 times 4x to the 4 minus 1 minus 6. Remember that the derivative of, if you have y equals c times x, y prime is just going to be that coefficient because that's an x to the 1. So this is going to give us a 4/5 x to the 3 minus 6. Now we're supposed to evaluate that at negative 3. So that's 4/5 negative 3 to the 3rd, subtract 6, is 4/5 times negative 27 minus 6. So that's negative 108 over 5 minus 6. That's a denominator of 1, but I need a 5. So now it's going to be negative 108 over 5 minus 30 over 5. So that's negative 138 over 5. So f prime of negative 3 is negative 138/5. Now think about that. That is the slope of the tangent, or the instantaneous rate of change for this function at the specific value x equals negative 3. Example number 7. Find the slope and the equation of the tangent line to the graph of the function at the given value of x. Y equals x to the 4th power minus 10x squared plus 9, and x is negative 2. Well, the first thing we have to find is the slope of the tangent line, and so that's going to be the derivative. So our derivative, y prime, is going to be 4 times x to the 4 minus 1, which is 3, minus 10 times 2, 20, x to the 2 minus 1, which is 1, and then the derivative of 9 is 0. So this is our formula for the slope of the tangent at any x for this curve. But they specifically said find it at negative 2. So 4 times negative 2 cubed minus 20 times negative 2 is 4 times negative 8 plus 40, or negative 32 plus 40, which is 8. So this is my slope of my tangent. So my slope is 8. Now to find the equation of the tangent line, remember we have two choices, y equals mx plus b, or y minus y1 equals mx minus x1, and they don't specify here, so my math lab should accept either, and I would accept either on a test unless I specify y equals. So using that first formula, y equals 8, and now I have a problem. For either of these formulas, we need a slope, which we have, but we need an xy point. That's on the original curve, and the problem is we have an x of negative 2, but we don't know the y that goes with that. So we need to find y at negative 2, okay? Not y prime of negative 2, but a point on the original curve. So that's negative 2 to the 4th. You need parentheses around that, especially if you're going to put it in your calculator. 10 times negative 2 squared plus 9. is going to be a positive 16 minus 10 times 4 plus 9. That's going to be 16 minus 40 plus 9. And that's going to be a minus 15. Now that just gives us our y value when x is negative 2. So using y equals mx plus b, I can write y is negative 15, m is 8 times negative 2, which is x, plus the b that we don't know yet. Negative 15 is negative 16 plus b, and if I add 16 to both sides, I will see that b is 1. So y equals 8x plus 1. Now, since they didn't specify, if you prefer y minus y1 equals mx minus x1, it would be y minus negative 15 equals 8 times x minus negative 2. So that's y plus 15 is 8 times x plus 2. And that's an acceptable format, or you can go ahead and clean this up to 8x plus 16 if you subtract 15. The main thing I wanted to show you here is that you would get the same answer, y equals 8x plus 1. So regardless of the method that you use, this is our tangent to the curve at the point when x is negative 2. Example number 8. Find the slope of the tangent line to the graph of the given function at the given value of x. Y is negative 7 x to the 1/2 plus x to the 3/2, where x is 25. In this example, they only want us to find the slope of the tangent line. So we don't have to find the equation, just the slope. So all we need to do is find y prime first, and then find y prime when x is 25. So we're going to use our power rule. Negative 7 times 1/2 x to the 1/2 minus 1 plus 3/2 x to the 3/2 minus 1. Now 1/2 minus 1, you'll see that a lot. 1 with a denominator of 2 is 2 over 2. That's always going to be a minus 1/2. So it's negative 7/2 x to the minus 1/2 plus 3/2 x to the 1/2. So if you take 3/2, subtract 1, that's 3/2, subtract 2 over 2, and so that's 1/2. Now remember, x to the 1/2 is the square root of x, and we'll need that when we want to evaluate this. So we have negative 7 over 2 square root of x, because look, I take this negative exponent, I move it to the denominator to make it positive, and remember the fact that 1/2 is the square root of x, and then I've got plus 3/2 times the square root of x. Again, I've got to do that in order to do the evaluation arithmetic. So negative 7, 2 times the square root of 25, plus 3/2 times the square root of 25. That gives me negative 7 over 2 times 5 plus 3 over 2 times 5. That's negative 7/10 plus 15 over 2. And of course, I want a denominator of 10 this time, so I'm going to multiply this second fraction top and bottom by 5. So negative 7/10 plus 75/10, and so that's going to give me 68 over 10, which reduces to 34 over 5. So the slope of the tangent to that curve at 25 is 34/5. Example number 9. Find all points on the graph of f of x equals 6x squared minus 14x plus 8 where the slope of the tangent line is 0. So the first thing we have to do is find f prime of x. So that's going to be 12x minus 14. And where f prime of x is equal to 0 is where 12x minus 14 is equal to 0. So that's where 12x is equal to 14. Divide both sides by 12. And x is equal to 14/12, which is a fraction, which reduces to 7/6. Now, it's important to recognize here that they want the point or points, and what we've found is simply the x value where the slope of the tangent is 0. So we have to go back and find the y value when x is 7/6. It's not the derivative at 7/6. It's the y that goes with this x. So that's the original function. So it's 6 times 7/6 squared minus 14 times 7/6 plus 8. So that's 6 times 49 over 36 minus 98 over 6 plus 8. That gives me 294 over 36 minus 98 over 6 plus 8 over 1. And since these are fractions to be combined, they all have to have the same denominator. So to get a 36 in the second fraction, top and bottom by 6, and a 36 in the third fraction, top and bottom by 36. So I will end up with 294 over 36 minus 588 over 36 plus 288 over 36. So combining 294 minus 588 plus 288, I end up with negative 6 over 36, and that reduces to negative 1/6. So the ordered pair is x is 7/6 and y is negative 1/6. Example number 10. Find all the values of x where the tangent line is horizontal. So before we begin, let's review what is true about horizontal lines. Whenever you have a horizontal line, no matter where it's located, it has a slope of 0. Okay? Because there's no rise, remember the slope of a line is the rise over run, and then you have 0 over some number, and that's going to be a 0. It's not changing from one x to the next x. It's constant. So a horizontal line has a slope of 0. So what they're asking us to do is find where f prime of x is equal to 0. So is horizontal means equal 0. So the first thing we do is we find f prime of x. So it's going to be 2 times 3, x to the 3 minus 1 is x squared, plus 39 times 2, x to the 2 minus 1, which is 1, plus 216, and then the derivative of 4 is 0. So this is 6x squared plus 78x plus 216. Now, this is a trinomial, and to find where this is equal to 0, we're going to have to either factor it or use the quadratic formula. Now, I'm not going to review the quadratic formula here, but if you want to go out on YouTube and review the quadratic formula, you could use it. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor out a 6. 78 divided by 6 is 13. And then 216 divided by 6 is 36. So you can see the factoring is not as complicated as it would be if you had to factor that trinomial with a coefficient of 6. So I've got to put this in factored form. And so I'm going to look at the factors of 36, okay, that add up to 13. It's not 1 and 36. It's not 2 and 18. It's not 3 and 12, but it is 4 and 9. So this is x plus 4 times x plus 9. And 6 equals 0, never. X plus 4 equals 0 if x is negative 4. And x plus 9 is 0 if x is negative 9. So the two values where the tangent line is horizontal is at negative 4 and negative 9.